Stay hydrated.
Yeah, that and something else. Probably need Gatorade today. I need Gatorade today.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Happy June. I know it's hard to believe in so many ways. We say this every year, but this year it takes on different meanings that we can't believe it is June. I hope this June finds you and your family and friends and colleagues happy and healthy, most of them safe. New York is beginning to reopen. So we are very, very pleased about that. And the Business Council Westchester has submitted our recommendations for the Westchester Economic Recovery Task Force to the governor and the county executive just today. We will be having a webinar later this week to present that to our members, so stay tuned. And today we are here. Normally we would be at Canopy, probably completing a glass of Pinot Grigio and some wonderful hummus for our People's United Bank. But I hope you're all enjoying perhaps some lunch and some free time and are ready to learn from Westchester's great entrepreneurs to the entrepreneurial journey, what has made it exciting, and what they think, especially in these times. And it's my privilege to introduce, first of all, our host for the People's United Bank Leadership Conversation Series, Joe Mccoy, the Senior Vice President of Commercial Lending and the Region Manager for People's United Bank. Joe?
Thank you, Marcia. Good afternoon, and thank you everyone for joining us for what is going to be a great event. As Marcia mentioned, my name is Joe Mccoy, and I run People's United Bank's middle market commercial lending group, focused on lending monies to small and mid-sized businesses throughout Westchester and the Hudson Valley. People's United Bank is a large regional bank based in Bridgeport, Connecticut, with over $60 billion in assets. We have over 400 branches from Maine on down to New York. Now, that might not mean much to some of you, but what really differentiates People's United Bank from the other banks is our ability to service and proactively support our clients in their time of need. We're a large institution, so we can provide all the products and services that our larger competitor banks can provide. But what really sets us apart really is that customer service. It's that ability to quickly and answer them quickly because we have minimal bureaucracy. This could not have rang out more true than what we just went through with the SBA's payroll protection program, where People's United Bank was very successful in servicing not only all of our clients, but non-clients who really struggled with their bank in securing PPP funds. We were successful in processing close to 17,000 applications for close to $2.6 billion in funding. And why were we so successful? We were successful because we were able to control the process. We were able to manually enter, spending long hours manually entering information in, which allowed us to communicate directly with our clients on a very timely basis. Now, if this is something that you did not experience, if what I just laid out of how people's handled this PP process wasn't something that you experienced with your bank, or you weren't satisfied with how your banker handled you in your time of needs, then I would say reach out to me, if for nothing else than just to have a conversation or maybe to get some advice. When clients need us most, People's United Bank is there for them. For over 175 years of existence, we have and will continue to be a relationship-driven organization. We are the bank that you want to partner with. So thank you. Hope you enjoy the show, or I should say the program. And Marcia, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you, Joe. And yeah, it will be a little bit of a show, and that's fine. I just want to thank People's United Bank and everything you've done for the community and the many, many businesses I know you have personally helped. And I know now many of us have learned the importance of having that personal relationship. That's what made so much work. And Joe, you were a great partner. So talk about personal relationships. When we talked way before COVID about getting together this panel of Westchester's most exciting entrepreneurs, I contacted the 5 people you see on the screen. And it's my pleasure to introduce them now. They all have great biographies, So I'm just going to introduce them by their name and their company and let them start by telling you a little bit about their company. So first of all, Heidi Davidson, CEO of Galvanize Worldwide and also the Business Council of Westchester, Chairman of the Board. Tom Kalish, the CEO and founder of Kane Stocks Company. Louis Lanza, a restaurateur and entrepreneur for Hudson Hospitality Group. Brandon Steiner, CEO and founder, the Steiner Agency and Collectible Exchange, and Dr. Samant Virk, founder and CEO of Metasprout. Welcome to everyone. I hope everyone that's listening please use the chat box and the Q&A because we will have time for questions and answers. And we're going to kind of mix this up a little bit. But Heidi, we're going to start with you. If you can just tell us a little bit about your business and why you took this entrepreneurial journey.
Yeah, I'm happy to. Thank you for having us, and thank you, Joe and people, for hosting. Galvanize Worldwide, I'm the co-founder of Galvanize, and we are the largest distributed network of marketing and communications professionals around the world. So what does that mean? We started about 5 years ago, 2 of us, and we're now about 90 marketing and communications professionals. We bring people together with clients who span kind of the startup advisory space. So not only are we on the entrepreneurial journey, but we get to be a part of other entrepreneurial journeys. Marketing, outsource marketing for them. We do outsourced and on-demand marketing for companies of all sizes. And then we also do crisis communications work. And what started me on this journey, I had some big jobs on the agency side. I had big jobs at MasterCard and at BlackBerry. And after a 3-year contract at BlackBerry, I was tired. It was a fascinating experience to be on the turnaround team, but I was tired and trying to figure out what I was going to do next. And I remember sitting, interviewing at a really great agency in downtown Manhattan and kind of thinking, after an 1.5-hour commute, what the hell am I doing here? And really, it was kind of this eye-opening moment where I was like, this isn't what I want. I have little kids at home. I had started to miss some things with all my work travel. And I was starting to think through, like, what could I do? What could I build that would allow me to work on really great, interesting projects, brain food for myself and others, and also let me be home for the kids, drop them up from the bus, and to do some extracurricular activities. And so the rest is history, really. Jeff Gadway, the other co-founder, and I sat at my kitchen island and mapped out what that would look like. And Galvanize was born that day.
So how did you know that you had the right idea or that you were really onto something? And Heidi, I feel like, I've been on this journey with you. I've watched it. And so Heidi is one of the most authentic people I know. So
thank you for that. I think, I knew early on a couple of different ways, right? I knew that I felt energized and fulfilled and more balanced in how I was approaching home and life and work. I knew it because we started to get clients, and clients were telling us that they really wanted a partial CMO, chief marketing officer. They wanted to fill gaps in their in their headcount without hiring a full-time person. And then we started to engage with a couple of startups that first year. And the first one was sold for $28 million, and the second was sold for $32 million. And that second one, in a Reuters article, said that one of the reasons that they were successful was because Galvanize made them look bigger than they were. And so then the work really started to come in. And so that, and then the talented people started to join the network. And it's really been, that was kind of the proof was in the pudding, and it took off from there.
I am unmuting because, of course, the lawnmowers came by as you were speaking. Tom, you also, thank you, Heidi. We're going to come back to you. Tom, you've had several businesses, and now you have this amazing socks company. So tell us about your business and talk a little bit about your entrepreneurial journey.
Well, to be perfectly honest, I've had one job in my entire lifetime, and that was when I was 19 and a half, and I was a salesman. And I ended up buying that company when I was 20 years old, not knowing how to buy a company. My accountant helped me. But I realized I never wanted to work for anybody, and I don't know that I could have I'm very bullheaded. I probably would get fired very quickly if I ever took a job. But I've always been in my own business. I have a couple of rules in entrepreneurship. If it's been done before, I don't want to do it. It's got to be a new idea. So to talk about where I am today, 15 months ago, I had an idea. I was putting on a pair of socks one morning. I put these socks on. They looked great with what I was wearing. I put them in my shoes and it didn't fit. And the socks were moving. And it just hit me like a white light. Why don't people make socks in the correct size? Why do I have to buy a 9 through 14 or one size fits all? And I thought it was a crazy idea, but I did a little homework and I decided it was worth giving it a go. And for me, Marcia, entrepreneurship is about two things: belief in yourself, data, and you got to love the game. Like, you got to want to win. Money is a big part of it, but you also have to be willing to risk a lot. I can't count the amount of times I've been what I'll call wealthy and on the rocks. And you can't be scared of that. But if you have a good idea, my advice to any entrepreneur is the difference between a good idea and a great idea is you don't give up on the good idea, and it will become a great idea. This stock company, we ran as a beta company for 6 months because in today's modern world, it's all about real-time data and analytics. And the analytics let you scale from there. So, entrepreneurship is great for everybody, but you have to have a little backbone. And most of all, you got to believe in yourself.
So I think that, and I'll hold this up, we hope everyone can see it because it's Brandon, I hope you can see this. I think Brandon Steiner would say you got to have some other things too. So Brandon, I'm going to turn this over to you. So talk to us about your business now and your entrepreneurial journey.
I would say, you got to have balls, you got to have brains, and you got to have patience. Probably a lot of you got to have, but I've been a Westchester guy now for a nice, better part of my life. Having moved my old company, Steiner Sports, up to New Rochelle and living in Scarsdale for the last 30 years now. But so I live and love Westchester. I left Steiner, so it's important to note I'm not with Steiner anymore. And by the way, if you want to get a free copy of the book, my new company, Collectible Exchange, just go to the website and you can get the book for free because we'll give you some do's and don'ts for starting your own business. But, the last 3-4 years, I realized, mostly even from my own experience, that there's so many people sitting with so many collectibles and sports stuff that have been handed down. They had nowhere to sell them. So the only place that really is an open marketplace is eBay, and people don't really feel too good about that. So when I started Collectible Exchange, it's a site that you can buy really cool collectibles, but also you can sell your collectibles on there. And it's a safe place because we offer an option for the buyer to get it authenticated. So if you buy something, you're not sure if it's real, you can opt in and we can authenticate it for you. And also there's an opt-in button where if you want to know what something's worth, if you have something because it was handed down by your grandparents, you can say, hey, Brandon, I want to know what this thing is worth. I have no idea. And I'll tell you what it's worth. And then our team will also tell you what to do with that, how you could sell it or how you can actually extend the value of it. And then the Steiner Agency I've been doing since 1987, which is just really using athletes to help you grow your business. Most people know about my relationship with Mariano Rivera, another phenomenal Westchester resident, I might add. But we've helped a lot of people, their company, we've helped a lot of people have their companies grow. And a lot of people think you need Michael Jordan to do it, which if you're lucky enough to sign him up 40 years ago, that would have been great. But you'd be surprised. There's a lot of talent that can move the needle. And we have a lot of talent that want to invest in companies or take board seats. So I've been doing those wheeling and dealing things since I'm 30. It's like the first part of the business I got into, and that's the Steiner Agency. So, I'm loving business again. I'm an entrepreneur. I just started 6 months ago. I turned the light on and got to tell you, man, it's not easy. So I think what the other previous guest just said is very, very true. It's very hard to get something started. You got to be resilient, but you'd be surprised, sometimes even the most difficult things, usually that's the light, usually that darkness is right before the light shines. So even though this virus has been really tough and it's hard on everyone, it's actually been the complete turnaround for my company because so many people have gone through their closets, their basements, whatever thought. And we have over 45,000 items on collectible exchange already just after 5 months. So every day now people are piling on because, you know, wives are getting on their husbands. Like, what is all this crap? Clean this stuff out. I didn't know you had this filthy jersey. I was going to throw it out. I'm like, oh, that's a Derek Jeter gave me his jersey worth about 20 grand. I'll
That's
throw that out.
really interesting. That's really interesting that this time has allowed people to come back to you just really when you're launching this next part of your business. That's really,
It's
really
great.
interesting.
Who hasn't cleaned out a closet? Who hasn't cleaned out their basement or
Right.
garage? I mean, everybody has. So I've been a beneficiary of it.
That's great. And we are the beneficiary of having you, Brandon. So,
Thank you.
Louis, you are a great entrepreneur. You do so much for the county and especially the Peekskill area. Thank you so much. So tell us a little bit about your business and your entrepreneurial journey.
One thing, Brandon, you're going to have another 10 things on your website because my family is a big sports fanatics their whole life. And I never liked sports, but every time I go to one of these benefits, I buy a memorabilia. So I got a lot of stuff I'm going to talk to you about after this. Anyway, so
Great.
when I graduated from high school, my father, who was a successful engineer, talked me into going to engineering school. That first year I flunked out of engineering and I didn't know what to do. My father was mad at me and I moved back to California, where I was born and raised. I happened to have won the Home Economics Award my senior year in high school in Edgemont. So I was a Westchester guy. I went back to California. I worked in some restaurants and it just clicked. I love to cook. I love people. I love instant gratification. So that being said, when I was 2 years into California, I got my culinary degree in San Francisco, and I got hired by TGI Fridays, which was the big chain back in the day. And they were training me to become, this is my first and only job, like you, Brandon. First job was being trained, and I had some of my high school buddies called me up and said, hey, there's a restaurant in Manhattan that my brothers are involved in. It ran out of money. Would you like to come out? And I was the big restaurant guy at 20 years old. So we went back to New York, ended up getting involved in a restaurant that had no name, no signs, no anything. And it opened up. There was a restaurant called Memphis back in about 86. And it became one of the most successful restaurants in Manhattan with no name. You walk by the place, it was a doctor's office glass. And it was in the time when everything was popping in New York, and it was a resurgence. So that being said, 10 restaurants later, I kind of got out of Manhattan, raised a family, moved back to Westchester where my roots were, and I swore off any kind of restaurant. But unfortunately, I bought a bunch of property in Peekskill, a city that was on the verge of it could go either way. And after I bought all these buildings, I realized I got to do something with these buildings because nobody wants to be a tenant. So I got back in the restaurant business in the last 5 years, and it's been on my own terms versus Manhattan. Manhattan, landlord owned you. You had a great restaurant, and at the end of your lease, you had nothing to show for it. The landlord jacked up the rent, and you were in a place where you had to make a decision. So I was lucky. All my friends in the business in New York right now are definitely hurting right now, and especially with the COVID and everything. So I always said, build it and they will come. I never looked at money. I never looked at, I looked at what my passion was, which is so important. I love to cook. And, now I'm not cooking as much as I used to, but it's still a people business. There's always food on the table. You surround yourself with the best people you possibly can as being an entrepreneur. It's not easy, but, you can't be afraid. When you think you're the smartest guy in the room, you have a problem. So I go back to a saying that a guy named Ray Kroc, who created McDonald's back in the day, said, when you're green, you grow, and when you ripe, you rot. So every day you're learning something new as an entrepreneur. Believe me, all you guys can attest to that. So that's my story. And I got more into real estate, but it stems from being a hospitality type of guy and always trying to please people.
Louis, I love that idea about passion. It's so true. I know you all so well. And by the way, Tom Kalish and Brendan Steiner and Louis Lanza all won the Business Hall of Fame Entrepreneur of the Year Award. So they all share that in common, as well as many other traits and drive and passion. So Sam, Dr. Verk, talk to us about your entrepreneurial journey, a little bit different and just as important. So Sam Verk, you need to unmute. Samant? I think he's frozen.
Uh-oh.
Okay, we're gonna come back. We'll come back to you. So let's talk about the skills and traits that make this road right for you. You know, well, Tom, I'm going to start with you. What is it about yourself that made the entrepreneurial path the right path for you? Unmute, Tom.
Oh.
Well, it's not building this platform, which is self-muting itself. That's for sure. So it's a very good question, Marcia. And you know, all I can tell you is my experience. Would you ask the question again, please?
Absolutely. Talk about your personal traits that have made this the right path for you.
Marcia, thanks. I only heard part of the question before. I thought that was it, but I want to make sure.
That's okay.
So, you know, I had a very interesting childhood. My family had some money growing up, but it was my grandparents. And my family went flat broke when I was 14. So I grew up as a rich kid and then was a poor kid. And I mean poor. We moved from a very big house, 3 boys, to a 2-bedroom apartment. So there were 5 of us in a 2-bedroom apartment. And it gave me perspective, and the perspective was very important, what money was worth. I was still okay on either side of that. So it gave me a little bit of a gambler's DNA. And I always decided that, you know, Louis said it best. You've got to be able to understand the risk, but you've got to be able to attract the right people, and you've got to make sure that you're not the smartest person in the room. So I've always been I hate the word people person, but you know, I get along and network very well. So my personal traits for this is I have a massive network of people that I fortunately can call on for capital, advice, to work for me. And you know, Marcia, as you know, I'm starting another business that we're not going to talk about today, which could be the biggest thing I've ever done in my life. So the other thing you can't be scared of, and my personal trait, is your work ethic. You know, especially with COVID, because we're all stuck at home. I wake up and then the next thing I know, it's 9 o'clock at night. I found myself getting into a 14, 15-hour day every day of the week, including weekends. It doesn't bother me. So personally for me, it's about the win. Like, money will come if you do well, but the win, it's about the game. So, you know, my personal, it's how I was brought up, understanding what it's like to have money and not have money. So I'm not scared of the risk. And most important, my drive, which is when I see something, I want to go make it happen. My favorite thing that I like to do is when people tell me I'm out of my mind and I still see the vision and make it happen. When I started Tommy Copper, you know, people told me I was crazy, but you know where that went. And it turned into a pretty big company. So it's really about the game. And it's about my personal experience of how I was brought up. You can't be scared to fail. And there's not one person on this panel that can tell me it's all been successes. It's the failures you learn from, and it's how you grow.
And Tom, I've watched you, and I've never told you you're crazy. I just always say, this is incredible because everything you've done and every idea that you've had, and especially the next one, is really, is really society altering. So stay tuned. Sam,
Crazy like a fox,
back.
Marcia.
Back.
Yes, I'm glad you're back.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about your business and your entrepreneurial journey. And was there an event or an issue that prompted you to launch this entrepreneurial path a little bit different for people who have MDs?
Yeah, right. I think when I decided I was going to leave practice, my father, who's always challenged me and been the one that said, you know, you should do more, you should think bigger. He said, "Are you crazy? you have a career." I said, "Dad, you know, it's time for a change." And you know, my change came about because it's the same reason that I went into medicine, because I love helping patients. And that's my passion. And as I've been practicing for over a decade, I more and more realized that the one thing I was doing less and less of was helping people. I was spending so much time doing things outside of helping patients that it became frustrating for me. And we have so much technology in my office. I worked in a pretty forward-thinking medical office, but all the technology around me was helping me do things like billing and charting and insurance authorizations and all the stuff I never signed up for, right? And it dawned on me that the most important value I have as a physician is to help people, and I wasn't seeing patients to do it, right? So that really translated to a particular moment where, I would regularly, this frustration kind of built over the course of years, and I would go home regularly and I'd kind of complain about it to my wife, right? I'd come up with cool ideas and I'd tell her about them. And then one day she said, honey, I love you, but I really need you to take one of these ideas and put them into action, because I think some of them are really great. So she'd gone to business school. She hands me one of her business school books. She said, the next time you come back to me with an idea, put it down on paper, write it up, and go make it happen, right? So I took that book, and over the course of a few months, I wrote up a plan, and I never looked back. And it really, she, like so many other parts of my life, has helped me kind of see things that I never saw. But I think that moment of the buildup of frustration, the courage to say, I am frustrated enough to write this down. And I think writing things down for me always brings clarity, and it gives me the sense of possibility. So once I wrote it down, I saw it on paper. I said, this is my plan to create this business now, which we've created and grown, where we provide secure video technology, video communication solution to doctors' offices so they can communicate with their patients. Staying true to my initial goal, where I want doctors to spend more time helping patients. While it doesn't necessarily have to be in the office, it can now be virtual, and it can be simple, and it can be easy. And that's what we've done.
So for those of us who never really thought we would do telehealth, frankly, I had my 92-year-old father doing telehealth a few weeks ago, and it was great. So Sam, we're so glad you were ahead of the time in thinking about this means of delivering excellent health care. What other skills or traits did you have, do you believe that you have, that made this road of entrepreneurship in the medical sector the right path for you?
I think that question, like so many of us, it starts from even before we were born, right? A lot of our traits, a lot of who we are comes from the people that came before us. And I trace the traits that existed in me that from my grandfather and my father, honestly. They were trailblazers in their own right. My grandfather, through a journey that he made in his life, where he became a leader in his community, to my father, who came from India to the US, and first went to even go to college in his family, and came here. They thought outside the box. They thought bigger, and they thought you should think on a larger scale, right? And when referencing what I said earlier about my father challenging me, he would always say to me, hey, you're a doctor, great, so proud of you. What else are you going to do, right? And kind of jokingly, and I love my father more than anything in the world, but those kinds of things, think bigger. You can change things. And as we know, healthcare is such a mess. Every time I would go into my practice, you'd realize how inefficient it was. And I said, I can think bigger here. And they gave me the courage to kind of discover that in myself, where I thought I could make this change, which we're seeing over the past few months really kind of hit the ground.
So what I love about entrepreneurs also is how generous they are with sharing very personal things, and we appreciate that. Brandon, I know you have a great story also, but what were those skills and traits that you believe that you have that made this road right for you?
Well, I grew up very poor and stayed pretty poor for quite a while. And I always say, I had heat in the summer and air conditioning in the winter. And I mean, I lived in a no-bedroom house. I mean, it was an apartment over at Glock Kosher Butcher. But I think, I think that the people listening, what I would just say is that it really doesn't matter where you are, your circumstances. I mean, we're all dealing with a lot of stuff right now on a lot of levels. It really, what matters is what you're willing to accept. For me, I think the most important skill that I've had is that I have a very high level of non-acceptance. Started at 10, I was like, man, got no food, got no clothes, got to do something about it. Now you could say, father died at an early age, my mother was divorced, I had all the excuses. There's always an excuse. Oh, we got this virus, put my business set back, I just started. You can always come up with a different excuse, but at the end, your mindset, I think what keeps you going, and you really hear it in everybody's voice when you talk about this. I just categorize it like it doesn't matter where you're at. What matters is your high level of non-acceptance. It's only until you stick your head out the window going, I'm not putting up with this crap anymore. I'm not going to stay at just a doctor. I'm not going to do it anymore. I'm not accepting it. I'm going to do something bigger. I'm going to do something more. And I think that everybody has that choice. Like for me, I've been making that decision no matter how much money I've made or business that have failed or business that have done well. I've always had a high level of non-acceptance. And my non-acceptance is what leads you. Once you get into non-acceptance, it gets you into dreaming big, it gets you into commitment, and then passion and all that stuff follows. So in 1994, just a quick story, my wife was really carrying all the weight. She was a CPA and CFO of a company, and I was just getting started. And believe me, selling autograph balls in the early 90s, like my wife was like, how are you going to support a family on that? Like nobody was doing that. A player's going to show up at a store and people pay you for that? Like who's doing that? So my mom had just passed away, and that was my mother's favorite line, by the way, you got to have balls. This is a book that everything my mother taught me about, and I made a lot of money. I was actually a kid that listened to his mother, which is another high recommendation I make to parents out there. I don't think you realize the impact you have on your kids. So I'm sitting on the train, very bummed and depressed. The Rangers had just won the Stanley Cup, and we know how big that was. So I looked down at the person across from me who is eating Chinese food. The other person has got their shoes off and feet smell. And there's this other couple, on Metro North, they're arguing that they got to be divorced soon after they're fighting. And I'm like, this is just not working for me. And I got to get off this train. And I've been feeling it for months that I cannot take the train and commute in anymore. I got to get a car. But I didn't have the balls to come home and tell my wife that I was going to buy a car. I was barely making any money. And I looked down the paper, the Daily News has this picture of Mark Messier with this big grin. He had just won the Stanley Cup. 54 years in waiting was one of the bigger moments in New York sports history. Mark Messier winning the cup. And immediately my mind's like, I just got to get off this train. I'm scheming, dreaming, just thinking, how can I make a bundle of money to get this car? I tracked down Mark's sister, his lawyer, his account, everyone that possibly knows Mark Messier to sign because I figured I could sell a bunch of those things. Maybe I get him an autograph. Everybody's going to want a piece of history. And finally, after like 2 months, I tracked Mark down. I signed my first autograph memorabilia deal with Mark Messier, which at that time I was just doing the marketing stuff. I'd love to tell you that I started Steiner in the autograph business for the good of man and because it was just this good, nice, warm thing that I was going to do to bring fans closer to the game. But it was a money grab, and it was a high level of non-acceptance. I just wanted to get off the goddamn train, and I would do anything to get off of it because I think once you get to that high level of non-acceptance, you just get committed to figuring out what the process is going to be and what you need to do it. And entrepreneurs and people that have, that have that thick skin to say, I don't care what it's going to take. And I think that's my biggest characteristic is that I've seen a lot of different ideas, but usually they come after not accepting the way a market or the way a certain thing is going. And I'm going to go do something about it. And then the passion and the dreaming and the purpose comes in.
Love it.
So that's kind of my story.
Love it. Heidi, I've seen you. I see you shaking your head here. I don't know if everyone else does, but I've seen this in you. What do you think are your traits that have made you a successful entrepreneur?
Well, I
From
definitely,
a corporate person. So you started as a corporate person.
yeah. And I also had to get the hell off the train. So that resonates with me. But I was thinking more because the train was keeping me from the kids. If there was an emergency in Westchester and I was in Manhattan, what do I do? How do I get there? Can I get there fast enough? It was bothering me. And I was debating, like, what do I want to do? Do I have to take the next corporate job? Am I walking into the next crisis situation and then I'm going to do crisis work every day, all day? And I started to kind of do what the guys are talking about. I started to think like, well, what if I could build the unicorn? What if I could find people like me who were experienced marketers or PR people who didn't want to be in the agency world, who didn't want to be in a major metropolitan city? There certainly are clients out there. What if they wanted to hire those, seasoned people for cheaper rates than hiring them full time? Anyway, so I started to go, what if? And then Jeff Gadway, who, as I said, was the co-founder, and I were sitting at my island with our spouses one night. We were all talking about what we didn't want to do. And I think it all came from there, like laying out what's bothering you or what you don't want to do, and then kind of picturing the checklist of, okay, maybe there are other people who want that or are frustrated by that or who need that. And for me, I am a worrier. These guys, I wish I had that level of courage. I do worry. I have bills to pay, college to pay for in a few years, all of that. And I do worry. So I was thinking, how can I make this more feasible for us? I gave myself a window of time. I said, okay, we could fund this for a year. Let's see if we could give it a go. And I think that's what really, like, you put yourself in a timeline and you really fight to build the unicorn you have in mind, and it worked, and it works, it keeps working. And I think part of it is, we tell the startups that we work with too, I mean, part of it is, it's kind of the tree in the hurricane. You have to really get your feet firmly planted in the idea, who you are, why you're passionate about it, why you feel so strongly about it, because all that wind, whatever it is blowing at you. And if you, and I see this, every time one of our startups goes in to talk to an investor, the investor has 60 criticisms for them, and they leave that session going, should we change our business model? Should we change our pricing? Should we change, and once you get into that, you're no longer standing firmly on your feet. And I think that's where you get into a tricky zone. If you believe, then you have to keep working really hard at it. I think, for me, it's about, respectful persistence, being energized by something, keeping your eye on the ball of what you did this for in the first place. For me, it's that balance and being appreciative of that balance, no matter how crazy it gets, being smart. And then I think it's just knowing what you're not good at, what aren't you good at, and figuring out who those people are who still believe in the idea, but are good at the things you're not good at. Those, I think, are things that have really helped us.
So Heidi, you've done that. I've watched it. I've seen you make that transition. It's amazing, really amazing. Louis, I want to come to you. What traits and personality characteristics do you have that you believe have made you a successful entrepreneur? And I want you to all start. First of all, I invite the audience to put questions in the question and answer box or in the chat box. And I want to talk next, after Louis completes, about what it's been like in this time of COVID to be an entrepreneur, and how that's been different. So Louis, your traits, and then you can go right in the next question if you want.
Good question, Marcia. I grew up middle class in California, Northern California, pre-Silicon Valley. My grandfather, he lived to 103 years old. He was still working at 97. God bless. This guy, all sorts of businesses, from prohibition, making bootleg alcohol, to insurance business. He did everything. My grandfather wanted to become a doctor. He didn't want to be a doctor. He got into engineering. Sorry about that, Doc. So that being said, I came from a strong background of work hard and things will happen. I didn't see a lot of my father when I was younger. He was always traveling. He had all those million-mile certificates on the wall back in the days. The only thing I did get is I had a lot of airplane bottles full of liquor when I was growing up. So I was drinking early at 16 or 17 back in the day, because there was thousands of airplane bottles in our house, because they would always take the airplane bottles off the trips. So that being said, my father worked till the day he died, and I learned a lot from him, and I tried to improve myself from that generation. My grandfather didn't have the best relationship with his father because of work. My father, we got to go know each other. When I started my first restaurant, he actually was my first partner, because he gave us the money we needed to be one of 17 partners in a restaurant. So I think one of you guys said, listen to your parents, and your parents have to be involved in the kids. They can't assume that the education is going to tell them everything. there's so much more to be learned about the day-to-day experiences. So that being said, I went to school. I worked in a produce market for years with a guy named Tony Tantillo, who was a fresh grocer. I learned numbers and how to deal with people. And that's been one of the reasons why. Tony, yeah. I used to run his business while he was out partying. So that being said, it's numbers, it's people, it's spur of the moment. You're in a produce market. You're selling things for whatever it is to make people happy, to get the sale done. So that taught me a lot about the restaurant business. You could be the most talented chef in the world if you don't know the numbers and what makes the business run. And I'm not the best numbers guy when it comes to forecasting, so I brought myself the right guys to do that. So I can be creative. I can make the rain, so to speak. But the rain only happens if you have the people around you to get it going. And my father taught me that also. He was very successful. And in the last 10 years of his life, between 65 and 75, is when he made more of his money. So I'm still young. I still have a few years left. I can make some more mistakes because my best years are ahead of me. So it's just it's family background. It's learning from your mistakes. It's surround yourself with the best people. And I have no problem with working. I love to work. My young boys all see me working. They're all entrepreneurs. My 13-year-old can probably run restaurants better than some of the guys I have. So
you have great kids. I've met your kids. They're great.
Yeah.
So Louis, the hospitality industry, especially in this time, has been very, very hard hit. What have you learned about operating? What can you share? What have you learned, and what can you share about how to be an entrepreneur in this crazy time, especially in your sector?
So we were the first restaurants in Westchester to close down. I had talked to our county executive, and I wanted to set the example. I knew it was coming, so I closed down. And fortunately, my restaurants aren't my main income. So I didn't want to compete with other restaurants who had to do takeout, who had to do delivery in my area. Peekskill's still growing, and a lot of people live, hand to mouth in the restaurant business. So we started a thing called Million Gallons. We started making soup. My mom was the Mother Teresa of Westchester, so I knew I had to do something. So we put some money, we raised some money, and we started making soup for all the unemployed hospitality workers. So only in the last month, I started getting my thoughts together about what we're going to do. So we're starting doing our delivery, and I think Westchester County is poised to have a great hospitality business in the future because people are going to be leaving Manhattan. The restaurants have a lot of opportunity to capture customers all the time now. People are going to be, staying home, working from their office. I think people are tired of cooking at home, so delivery, takeout is going to all be very big. And I think eventually, we'll get back into restaurants at 75. What's going? And I think Westchester, in our situation, has a lot of potential. If the restaurants can hold tight and get these next, I'm positive.
Thank you,
Marsha, can I say one thing real quick?
Yes, please. Yes.
And I appreciate that. But for the people listening, it's one thing, listen, more people are going to come up to Westchester. They're going to live up here. But, you got to get into the nitty gritty of the takeout. Or, how do you make your takeout business now a primary business is an adjustment. You got to get your head on a swivel. So your takeout menu, I go to all these takeout menus online. They're not updated. They're hard to read. They're small. They don't have family packages. Then I get the takeout. It's not in good takeout packaging. Then the person answering the phone isn't fluent, doesn't know how to take the order really well. And that's a problem. So, you're not really going to be dealing with the primary right now in the next 6 months of people coming into your restaurant as often, but you got a tremendous opportunity with takeout and delivery, but you got to make the adjustments and not expect people just to call you. And the last thing I'll just say is, which restaurateurs struggle with, is digital marketing. Now you know your target audience. If you're in Peekskill, and by the way, I love Peekskill. Love what you've done in that town. It's amazing. That is so entrepreneurial. Everyone should go up there because it's amazing what's going on in the town of Peekskill. But you don't have to go market a restaurant in Peekskill 30 miles away, but you got to be able to learn how to work Facebook and your digital marketing to attack people within like a 5-mile radius. And it's no wonder why the pizza places and the Taco Bells and the Domino's are doing phenomenal because they've been doing takeout and delivery masterfully for years. But the other restaurants should learn from them and see how they pop up, how they're doing digital marketing, how they're doing SEO. So whatever business you're in, realize the adjustment you have to make, and not just adjusting, but doing those little things that will take some investment, will take some time and money that you may not be good at, but don't be afraid to reset it, even in a weird time like this.
Absolutely. Thank you, Brandon.
It's so
Thank
true.
you.
Can I say one more thing before?
I love the
So right.
hospitality business.
I love it.
I love it.
I love
So
this
right.
conversation going on.
So right. back before I left Manhattan, I had a restaurant called Better Burger. It was an incredible chain. I was ahead of
Love
my
that
time,
place.
organic burgers, and I was too stubborn back in the day to let the big guys help me out. So we had 3 going. We were 90 delivery guys, the whole bit. And I had the vitamin water guy. I just sold out his business. He was trying to buy a big piece of my company. And I was stubborn. I ended up basically getting out of it. 2 years ago, I had betterburger.com, the whole bit. 2 years ago, I found out Chipotle took that name. I never was smart enough to keep that trademark going. So it's pretty funny about, but I was in a delivery and takeout business for years in Manhattan. So now putting it back in Westchester, I'm very excited about that because he is so right about it. You have to be on your game and you have to give a better product and better marketing than all the other guys around you. So, I might have to call you up for some more advice.
Great. Well, that's what this is about. That's what the business council
Oh, it's so
does.
true.
It's fabulous. Okay, Heidi, in this time of COVID, what has it been like for you to run a business?
Yeah, for us, our 90 people are distributed. So we were already Zooming. We were already all distributed all over the world, no overhead for a physical space. So that didn't trip us up, right? We just kept going there. For us, the work changes a bit, right? So everybody, like these guys are talking about, everybody needs to market differently. So we were first trying to assess when is the right time to really pick up marketing again, so it didn't sound tone deaf. Then it's, okay, how do we go ahead and start marketing and market differently? And obviously the crisis business, as people were shutting down businesses, declaring bankruptcy, teams were shutting down, athletes had campaigns they wanted to engage in. We were turning that piece up. So we did obviously a lot of, layoff communications and things like that, which are tough. But back to what everybody was saying, like we're doing a lot more digital and social marketing, paid digital, paid social. But we actually we've seen 5 or 6 new business clients in the last month and a half, 2 months, because people are either trying to look at doing something differently and trying to differentiate themselves, need some support in how they communicate, or need some help in creatively pivoting to a different line of business. And so it's been a lot of fun. And for all those marketing people who've been laid off, unfortunately, we are either filling gaps at the companies that they've left.
Yeah.
We're encouraging them to come join the network and be part of the team and putting them back to work as well. So it's been okay. It's been okay so far.
Great.
Yeah.
Sam, this is, as we said before, this is kind of opened up a whole new opportunity for you. What have you learned about doing business during this time of COVID?
Well, I'm listening.
Yeah,
I'm listening to these guys talk about the restaurant businesses having to adapt and Brandon's take on, what they need to do is spot on. And honestly, the same thing applies to healthcare. They're doing an in-person care, right? Everybody's going into their doctor's offices. They're seeing their doctors in person. And literally within 48 hours across Westchester, all in-person visits are closed, right? And so now, what do we do as a company? This is right in our wheelhouse, and we are trying to help all of these offices provide care to their patients virtually. We are the quote unquote the delivery service now for the doctor's offices. And the thing that's happened is, for our business, this is what we do. This is kind of, the moment of reckoning, which, unfortunately happened this way. But I think that, there are silver linings here, and that's what we're taking away from it. Healthcare is an industry that needed to be moved. It was this kind of old, stodgy elephant. No one wanted to change because there were so many entrenched interests, right? So now you have these offices, they're providing their care virtually. And patients now, we're getting feedback from patients going, I've been going in my doctor's offices for 5 years for this thing. And now I found out I can do it virtually, and it was just as good. So I think we're going to see a transformation in healthcare taking place now. Even if things, knock on wood, do go back to normal, I think this is here to stay. And I think that it's not just going to be transformative for a pandemic where people with COVID need to get treated. I think for all of our chronic medical conditions, the whole mindset has changed. If you're diabetic, if you're hypertensive, if you have any chronic disease, you don't necessarily have to go into your doctor. So we're going to be able to make huge changes in healthcare, and our business is seeing this in real time. And we're helping those practices adapt the same way that, again, those guys were talking about how restaurants have to adapt, but you have to do it the right way. And we're learning that on the fly.
Thank you. Tom, what have you learned during this time, and what comes next for you in your business? And then
Interesting.
I want to leave time for questions, so we're going to
Sure. So, you know, as I said, we're 15 months old. We got caught in a very bad spot because, to what everybody's saying, we're pretty deep into digital marketing. That's what we know how to do. But factories were shutting down, production was stopping, and we were in a growth period. As a matter of fact, we were at the level of going to private equity and growing to plus 50 million for next year. And when COVID hit, we had to regroup in days and come up with a new pivot plan, kind of what Heidi was talking about, and say, okay, what can we do this? We were going to be importing globally, reducing our cost of goods, growing 20-fold. And so we had to say to ourselves, okay, what do we need to do? It was rocky because we were projected to do $1 million this month. We could have easily done it had we had the product. So we had to make a decision. Do we stop marketing? Do we cut back TV? Do we cut back radio? And in the ninth inning, I made a decision not to do that. I was able to work with various mills, get them through various political connections, get them registered as essential businesses, to where if they made diabetic socks, now they could go back into operation. And it's taken a few, maybe about 5 weeks. We've made up the difference, and we'll end up having a pretty good year. But, you know, everybody needs to think really carefully about one thing. We're all talking about social media, SEO, digital space. It is so crowded in that world today. You have to set yourself apart because, you know, everybody is going there. This disease, viral situation we're in is going to create a new economy that will never go back. There isn't one person listening or I'm looking at right now that's going to say, I feel like going to Macy's and buying something. You're not going to go. And you're not going to go for quite a while. This will change the digital e-commerce communication space forever, if you're smart in a good way. So to your second part of your question, what's next is it's full steam ahead for us, because there has now been what I call the stay-at-home economy, and it's not going away. So there's opportunities now. You know, Albert Einstein once said, in difficult times, opportunities will present themselves. I listened to Sam. I listened to everybody here. And these times are going to create the times that fit where we're at right now. And we're never going to go back to normal. We're going to go back to new normal. This digital age is growing exponentially. And if you don't believe me, look at Amazon. You used to get Amazon overnight. Now it's a week delivery. They can't keep up. So that's what I think is next. I think we'll have to have our eyes, excuse me, open to it.
Thank you. Heidi, what's next for you? We're going to do this lightning round.
Yeah, I think for us, you know, we're going to continue careful growth. We grow quickly. People to 90 in 5 years is a lot, and I want to make sure that we're careful about it. We're going to, you know, keep identifying the right clients, keep figuring out how to be careful and thoughtful in our growth, and, you know, look for differentiated services. Like we've started marketing masterclasses and storytelling workshops and different things that people are looking for online to continue their learning as well. In addition to our regular startup advisory work and outsourced marketing work and crisis work. So onward as well.
Brandon, what's next for you?
You know, I mean, how much time we have. You know, I'm thinking I've got this sweatshirt, a hoodie that's got a mask connected to it. I'm going to start marketing that. I'm definitely investing in a baby company, a baby gift company. I'm working on a couple of different angles. I mean, I can't imagine with what's going on the last 3 months, we're not going to have an onslaught of kids being born in the next 8 or 9 months. And I got to take advantage of that crap. And I'm going to be selling the hell out of baby gifts come Christmas time. I'll also be vibrant fourth quarter. I want to make sure I've got a ton of platform with a ton of baby gifts. I hope people keep buying and selling on my collectible exchange. And, you know, something, the athletes aren't going anywhere. So I'm going to start doing a lot more virtual. And then the last thing is I'm going to be building a bunch of websites for players. I'm going to be doing their shops. So you'll go to marianorivera.com or markmessier.com and find out what they're doing. And then I'll do the shop, or you'll buy a Mariano t-shirt, or you'll buy a collectible from them. So it's a new division for collectible exchange called Collect Direct. I got to tell you, man, what an opportunity this virus has brought out. And if your head's not on a swivel and spinning, then you need to you probably got to go take a walk around the block, because what an amazing opportunity for young people right now, especially they know so much more of what we need than maybe older people. And some people may be opting out of the market. So I'm keeping my head, and I'm staying ready. I mean, I just think there's so many things about to pop up.
Love it. Love it. Sam, and then Louie. And I know we have questions, but I want to be respectful of time, and we do want to end it too. We do that at the BCW. I think most of the questions have been answered by our great panelists. So Sam, what's next for you? Louie, what's next for you?
Yeah, what's next for us is we're doubling down on our mission. Our mission is help doctors get the care to their patients from the doctors they know best. Get them connected simply and easily, create a world of virtual healthcare the same way that you used to wait online in a bank, used to withdraw cash, wait at a teller. You don't have to do that anymore. And that's going to be the new world of healthcare. And we're doubling down on that mission that patients should get better care from their own doctors when they need it.
Great. Love it. Love it. And Louie, what's next for you?
As Brandon says, stay frosty right now. There's a lot of stuff happening. On my restaurant side, I'm trying to create a delivery platform where I don't have to use Uber and all these, for a big portion of your money. So we're getting our insurances together, our marketing together, so I can hire my own drivers and have them, be a separate companies to protect the restaurants. On the development side, we can't build them fast enough. I mean, I'm involved in several hundred units in Peekskill right now, and I joke about people. Peekskill's a 6th borough. You want to leave a borough, you can come to a city like Peekskill and have that urban environment. So if we can build them, keep them safe, use ozone, UV technology in the new apartments we're building, I think I can get people to come to Peekskill and not miss a beat from being in the city. So it's very exciting for me right now. Very exciting.
We love it. And we thank you for your commitment to the city. And we're rooting for the Paramount also, Louie.
Oh.
So John Mccoy, People's United Bank, when we started speaking about developing a program so that people can learn from entrepreneurs. Who knew how relevant this would be? But these entrepreneurs, all of you have so much in common. But what I'm hearing is that you've taken this time, which has been rough, which has had its challenges, and you've developed opportunities. And that's what makes you all successful entrepreneurs. And I love Louie, who's going in to meet with the county executive now to help our community more. And we thank all of you for everything you've done. We thank everyone on who's watched this, the people on Facebook, the hundreds of people who will continue to watch this. This will live in our in the Business Council of Westchester Business Resource Center. So please feel free to share. You're all amazing. You're amazing BCW members and Westchester businesses, and we thank you for your contributions. Joe Mccoy, People's United Bank, thank you for giving us the opportunity to present this series. We wish everyone a great day. Be well, stay safe.
Thank you for the opportunity, Marcia. Have a good day.
You too. Thank you.